It was the kind of Hollywood story that felt too strange, too unsettling to ever be real. Two people, husband and wife, both gone within just 5 months of each other. First, Brittany Murphy, just 32 years old, an actress once celebrated as one of Hollywood's rising stars. A woman who had charmed audiences with her quirky smile, her innocent warmth, and her undeniable talent. She collapsed suddenly inside her Los Angeles home and never got back up. The cause, officials would later declare, was pneumonia and severe anemia, an unusual death for someone so young and otherwise healthy. But then, the unthinkable. For months later, inside that very same house, Brittany's husband, Simon Monjack, also died. His cause of death? Pneumonia and severe anemia. The same home, the same illness, the same mysterious pattern. Was it coincidence? Was it something environmental, like toxic mold? Or was it something far darker, an intentional act, a hidden hand that silenced them both? Tonight, we peel back the layers of one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries. A story of innocence and glamour, of suspicion and grief, and a mystery that refuses to die, even years later. Before tragedy took her name, Brittany Murphy was best known for her charm and wide-eyed presence on screen. Born November 10th, 1977, in Atlanta, Georgia, Brittany grew up with big dreams and a larger-than-life personality. She moved with her mother, Sharon, to New Jersey, where Sharon worked tirelessly to support Brittany's ambitions. Her breakthrough came in 1995, when she landed the role of Ty in the teen comedy classic Clueless. Brittany's portrayal of the awkward, lovable newcomer earned her instant recognition. Audiences connected with her vulnerability, her innocence, and her natural comedic timing. Throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s, she built a career mixing quirky comedies and darker dramas. Girl Interrupted, 1999, where she played Daisy, a fragile young woman battling trauma. 8 Mile, 2002, opposite Eminem, cementing her status as a versatile actress. Uptown Girls, 2003, where her bubbly charm became her signature. By all accounts, Brittany was on her way to becoming one of Hollywood's brightest stars. But behind the spotlight, shadows were beginning to form. Hollywood is rarely kind to young women, especially those who dare to step outside its rigid definitions of beauty and success. For Brittany, those pressures became suffocating. She was often criticized by tabloids for her weight and appearance. Some insiders whispered about alleged drug use, though friends and colleagues insisted Brittany avoided hard drugs, struggling instead with over-the-counter medications and prescription pills to combat stress, anxiety, and insomnia. Her personal life, too, was tumultuous. She had high-profile relationships, including one with actor Ashton Kutcher, but none of them lasted. By 2006, Brittany was facing a career slump. Once considered a rising star, she was now landing roles in smaller films, some of which never saw theatrical release. Studio executives began labeling her unreliable after on-set difficulties and frequent absences. And then in 2007, Brittany shocked many when she married Simon Monjack, a British screenwriter and aspiring filmmaker with a checkered past. To outsiders, Simon Monjack was a mysterious figure. Born in England in 1970, Monjack had tried for years to break into Hollywood, but his career was marred by failures and lawsuits. He faced multiple legal battles, including eviction notices, financial troubles, and accusations of conning investors. Former associates painted him as manipulative and controlling. When Brittany married Simon in a private ceremony in May 2007, the tabloids pounced. Many called the relationship strange, questioning why Brittany, once a Hollywood darling, would tie herself to a man with such a troubled reputation. Friends of Brittany began noticing troubling signs. Some said Simon seemed to isolate her from her circle. Others worried about his influence over her career choices. But Brittany herself defended him fiercely. In interviews, she described Simon as a protector, her soulmate. To her, he was a safe harbor in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. Still, whispers grew louder. Was Simon truly a loving husband, or was he pulling Brittany deeper into chaos? By late 2009, Brittany Murphy's life had taken a turn for the worse. Her career was faltering. Health issues plagued her, including frequent reports of weakness, dizziness, and trouble breathing. Friends recalled her looking pale and fragile, a shadow of her former energetic self. At home, tensions were high. The couple was living with Brittany's mother, Sharon, in a large but somewhat rundown home in the Hollywood Hills, a home that had once belonged to pop star Britney Spears. In December that year, Brittany fell ill with what seemed like a severe respiratory infection. Reports suggest she had been battling flu-like symptoms for weeks: coughing, shortness of breath, and profound fatigue. On the morning of December 20th, 2009, everything came crashing down. At around 8 a.m., Brittany collapsed in her bathroom. Paramedics rushed to the scene after a frantic 911 call from her mother. She was unresponsive, struggling to breathe. She was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but it was too late. At 10:04 a.m., Brittany Murphy was pronounced dead. The world was stunned. An actress, so young and seemingly full of life, gone in an instant. And yet, the mystery had only just begun. The days following Brittany Murphy's sudden death were filled with speculation, confusion, and grief. Hollywood had lost a star, and the circumstances surrounding her collapse were far from clear. On February 4th, 2010, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office released its official report. The cause of death was listed as pneumonia, iron deficiency anemia, and multiple drug intoxication from both prescription and over-the-counter medications. The autopsy revealed Brittany's lungs were severely congested, consistent with pneumonia. Her hemoglobin levels were dangerously low, showing she had been suffering from chronic anemia. Dr. Lisa Skanen, the deputy medical examiner, explained, "The cause of death is essentially natural, but it was preventable." The report emphasized that Brittany's condition, while serious, could have been treated if she had received proper medical attention. But what truly caught attention was the list of medications found in her system. Though none were illegal drugs, the coroner noted a cocktail of prescriptions, including painkillers, antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, and cough medicines. To many, this painted a tragic picture: a young actress overwhelmed by illness, stress, and perhaps an over-reliance on pharmaceuticals. Yet, others weren't convinced. The tabloids devoured every detail. Headlines screamed, "Brittany Murphy, tragedy of a Hollywood starlet. Prescription pills and mystery in the hills. Too young to die." Television shows debated endlessly whether Brittany had been another victim of Hollywood's obsession with drugs. Some commentators compared her to Anna Nicole Smith and Heath Ledger, whose premature deaths were also tied to medications. But Brittany's closest friends pushed back against this narrative. They insisted she was not addicted to drugs. One friend told People magazine, "She was sick. She was really sick, and no one took her seriously enough." Her mother, Sharon Murphy, added fuel to the speculation when she told reporters that Brittany had been very ill in the days before her death, and had even considered seeing a doctor, but never did. The tragedy was that Brittany's life might have been saved with something as simple as antibiotics or an iron supplement. And yet, the mystery deepened. If the world was shocked, Brittany's family was fractured. Her father, Angelo Bertolotti, was quick to challenge the coroner's findings. Angelo, who had been largely estranged from Brittany, but still claimed to want the truth, insisted foul play was involved. He accused both Sharon Murphy and Simon Monjack of hiding the real circumstances of Brittany's death. He suggested Brittany might have been poisoned, or even deliberately silenced. Years later, Angelo went so far as to commission independent toxicology reports. Those tests, according to him, revealed high levels of heavy metals in Brittany's hair, leading him to allege that rat poison or some form of deliberate poisoning could have killed her. The Los Angeles Coroner's Office, however, dismissed these claims. Officials stated that hair samples could be contaminated by environmental exposure and that there was no concrete evidence of poisoning. Still, Angelo's claims gave life to conspiracy theories that refused to die. The official story was already complicated enough, but soon new theories began circulating. 1. The mold theory. Rumors spread that the Hollywood Hills mansion where Brittany lived was infested with toxic mold. The fact that both Brittany and her mother had reportedly experienced chronic respiratory problems lent weight to this theory. Some experts argued that prolonged exposure to black mold could cause pneumonia-like symptoms. but the Los Angeles Department of Health dismissed the idea. No evidence of mold was officially recorded in the coroner's report, and Sharon Murphy herself publicly denied mold played a role. 2. Poisoning theories. Angelo Bertolotti's claims of poisoning gained traction in tabloids and online forums. The similarities in the deaths of Brittany and Simon, same house, same cause, seemed too eerie to ignore. Could someone have deliberately poisoned them both? If so, who would benefit? Speculation ran wild. Was a Hollywood cover-up? A jealous rival? Or perhaps something linked to Simon's shadowy past and alleged business dealings? 3. Neglect or medical mismanagement. Others argue the tragedy was less sinister, but no less heartbreaking. Brittany had been visibly ill for weeks. Why had she not sought proper medical care? Why had her husband and mother, who lived with her, not insisted she see a doctor? One toxicologist later commented, "This was a case of medical neglect. A healthy 32-year-old should not die of pneumonia and anemia." While theories swirled, much attention turned to Simon Monjack. In the months after Brittany's death, Simon gave numerous interviews. He portrayed himself as a grieving widower, heartbroken and alone. He often spoke of Brittany as his soulmate, insisting they were deeply in love, but his behavior raised eyebrows. Simon blocked Warner Brothers from using Brittany's likeness in a planned memorial montage. He also kept a tight hold on her belongings, granting few people access to the home. Some friends alleged that Simon had controlled Brittany in life and was now controlling her legacy in death. Adding to suspicion were Simon's financial troubles. Reports revealed he owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid debts. Some wondered if Brittany's fame and eventual estate had been his lifeline. Still, Simon dismissed critics. He maintained Brittany died from natural causes, and that he, too, was devastated. Yet, fate had one more cruel twist in store. It had been just 5 months since Hollywood buried Brittany Murphy. The world was still grappling with the shock of her sudden passing when tragedy struck again, this time claiming her husband. On the evening of May 23, 2010, emergency services were once again called to the same Hollywood Hills mansion. Inside, they found Simon Monjack, unresponsive in the master bedroom. Paramedics tried to revive him, but it was too late. Simon was pronounced dead at just 40 years old. The location, the same house where Brittany had died. The cause, eerily identical, pneumonia and severe anemia. The parallel was chilling. 2 people, a married couple, dead within months of each other, from the same conditions in the same home. The public couldn't accept this as coincidence. At the time of Simon's death, only one other person was living in the house, Brittany's mother, Sharon Murphy. It was Sharon who had made the 911 calls in both tragedies. She had been present for both Brittany's collapse in the bathroom and Simon's death in the bedroom. Some journalists and fans began questioning Sharon's role. Was she simply a grieving mother and mother-in-law caught in back-to-back tragedies? Or was there something more sinister at play? Sharon maintained she had done everything she could to help Brittany and Simon, but whispers in Hollywood were not so forgiving. Simon's death reignited all the theories that had swirled around Brittany. 1. Toxic mold. Once again, speculation centered on the mansion itself. Could toxic black mold have killed them both? After Simon's death, officials did revisit the theory, but no conclusive proof was ever made public. Sharon herself later filed a lawsuit against the builders, claiming the home was unsafe. However, the case was quietly dropped, leaving more questions than answers. 2. Poisoning. The similarities between the 2 deaths gave fuel to the poisoning theory. Angelo Bertolotti, Brittany's father, doubled down on his belief that both his daughter and Simon had been murdered. His independent toxicology tests on Brittany's hair samples seemed to suggest elevated levels of heavy metals, though critics argued the results were inconclusive. 3. Coincidence or neglect. Some medical experts argued that the 2 deaths, while strange, could still be explained without foul play. If both Brittany and Simon were in poor health, living in the same environment, and failing to seek proper treatment, the outcome, tragic as it was, might simply have been coincidence. But for fans, coincidence felt like a hollow explanation. In the aftermath of Simon's death, disturbing stories about his life resurfaced. He had been sued multiple times for fraud. He left behind massive debts. Some former associates claimed he had fabricated parts of his past, including claims about his wealth and professional achievements. To many, Simon was a man who lived in illusions, clinging to the glamour of Hollywood while hiding his financial ruin. But others argued that, despite his flaws, he had truly loved Brittany, and that her death broke him in ways he could never recover from. Perhaps Simon's own declining health was worsened by grief, depression, and neglect. Still, his sudden death in the same manner as his wife remained impossible to ignore. The deaths of Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack left a trail of unanswered questions, fractured family ties, and conspiracy theories that linger to this day. Sharon Murphy quietly retreated from public life, rarely speaking about her daughter again, Angelo Bertolotti, until his own death in 2019, never stopped fighting for what he called the truth. He remained convinced Brittany had been poisoned, and his belief fueled years of online debates and documentaries. Meanwhile, Brittany's fans mourned not just the mystery of her death, but the loss of her potential. She had been on the cusp of a new chapter in her career, remembered for performances that blended innocence, humor, and emotional depth. 2 deaths, 2 autopsies, 2 nearly identical causes. Yet more than a decade later, the world is still divided. Some accept the official reports, pneumonia, anemia, and a reliance on medications. Tragic, but not sinister. Others remain convinced something darker happened in that Hollywood Hills mansion. The truth may never be known. But one thing is certain, Brittany Murphy's light was extinguished far too soon. At 32 years old, she left behind a legacy of unforgettable performances and a mystery that still haunts Hollywood. As for Simon Monjack, his death sealed the story in tragedy, ensuring that the couple's names will forever be linked not only in love, but in suspicion. And so, the mansion on Rising Glen Road became less a home and more a tomb of unanswered questions. While much of the world moved on, one man refused to let Brittany's story end with an autopsy report. Her estranged father, Angelo Bertolotti. Angelo had lived much of his life away from Brittany. But after her death, he took up the role of investigator, challenger, and self-styled truth seeker. In interviews, he was blunt. "My daughter did not die of natural causes. Brittany was murdered." It was a claim that shocked many. But Angelo didn't back down. He believed Brittany and Simon had been poisoned, perhaps deliberately silenced because of what they knew or who they angered. For Angelo, the official explanation, pneumonia and anemia, was far too convenient. In 2013, Angelo made headlines when he commissioned independent toxicology testing on Brittany's hair and blood samples. The results, according to the private lab, showed abnormally high levels of heavy metals, such as antimony and barium, substances often associated with rat poison or insecticides. Angelo seized on this as proof of his theory. He told reporters, "The toxicology lab has shown that my daughter was poisoned. This wasn't pneumonia. This wasn't anemia. Someone wanted her dead." The claim sent shockwaves through the media. Articles speculated about everything from Hollywood conspiracies to political assassination plots. But medical experts and the Los Angeles coroner's office dismissed the findings. They argued hair samples were unreliable, often contaminated by environmental exposure, such as hair dye or pollution. Still, Angelo stood firm. He accused officials of covering up the truth, suggesting powerful forces were at work behind the scenes. The idea of a Hollywood curse has long fascinated the public. Beautiful stars cut down in their prime, leaving behind mysteries that never fully resolve. For Brittany, the eerie similarities between her death and Simon's added fuel to that narrative. Fans whisper about the house being haunted, cursed, or toxic. Others pointed to Simon's alleged business dealings, claiming enemies might have wanted him silenced, and Brittany had become collateral damage. Then there were those who linked Brittany's death to Hollywood's darker side, rumors of exploitation, manipulation, and secrets that never see daylight. Theories spiraled out of control, but none were ever proven. The fascination with Brittany's case never faded. Over the years, her story has been revisited in books, true crime specials, and documentaries. The most notable came in 2021, with HBO's What Happened, Brittany Murphy. The 2-part documentary delved deep into her rise to fame, her troubled relationship with Simon, and the strange circumstances of their deaths. It painted a portrait of Brittany as a vibrant talent overshadowed by controlling influences, questionable choices, and a system that failed her. The documentary reignited public debate. Viewers demanded answers once again, while experts on the show labeled Simon Monjack as manipulative, even predatory. But even with new attention, the core mystery remained unchanged. More than a decade later, Brittany Murphy's name still sparks both admiration and unease. She is remembered for her charm, her comedic timing, and her emotional depth in films like 8 Mile and Girl, Interrupted. But her untimely death has overshadowed her legacy, turning her into a symbol of Hollywood's fragility. For Angelo Bertolotti, the fight consumed the final years of his life. Until his death in 2019, he insisted Brittany had been poisoned, his words keeping conspiracy theories alive long after officials closed the case. Sharon Murphy, meanwhile, faded into near silence. Once outspoken, she withdrew from the public eye, leaving many unanswered questions about her role or her silence. And the house on Rising Glen Road? It was eventually sold, renovated, and stripped of its tragic history. Yet for those who know the story, the shadow lingers. So what truly happened to Brittany Murphy and Simon Monjack? Was it simply a tragic mix of illness, neglect, and bad luck? Or were these two deaths the result of something far darker, poison, cover-up, or conspiracy? The truth has never been fully proven. And perhaps, in the fog of Hollywood's secrets, it never will be. But Brittany's story endures because it embodies something universal. The collision of innocence and corruption, health and neglect, love and suspicion. She was a rising star whose light went out too soon, leaving behind not just a grieving family and a stunned industry, but a haunting mystery that still refuses to rest. And for many, the question remains, did Brittany Murphy die of natural causes, or was she silenced,